Hello, and welcome to our show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They do not intend to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. So, you know the pain, stress, and struggle that divorcing men and women go through? Well, there is a way to find peace and your sanity, all while helping your lawyer through the process. This can save you thousands of dollars. My name's Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach, specialist, divorce planning specialist, restorative family mediator, and conflictual co-parenting coach. Today, we are graced with this beautiful lady, Stephanie. Stephanie McPhail is going to join us today. And Stephanie she actually works alongside her husband, David. And Stephanie and David are a husband and wife team. They coach together, and they bring their expertise, personal experience, and balanced viewpoints together in a powerful synergy, offering a unique male-female perspective that's both inspirational and practical. They help clients from all over the world transform their lives to include more peace of mind, personal freedom, love, joy, passion, and purpose. Thank you for joining me today, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have to show the picture right behind you of your husband and you on your wedding day. They don't get to see David today, so we get to see him in the picture behind you.
Yes, exactly. I know. It's funny because our anniversary is actually coming up next week, and we'll be married for 10 years.
Ooh, how wonderful is that?
Yes. Yeah. And I would have never imagined it when I was going through all my stuff.
He's your dream husband.
Yes, he's who I was looking for.
Yes, yes. I was married to my dream husband. And so I remember us kind of talking about this when we originally talked. And so I didn't realize just how intertwined you and David were in your coaching aspect until we got ready to do the show today. So can you tell me how come you ended up here?
Sure. Well, I don't know about anyone's listening, but I used to be really good at choosing really shitty partners and then trying really hard to make it work. So
Yes.
it's this thing that we have. And I realized, after my first marriage that was abusive, I learned what codependency was. I remember at one point while he was yelling and screaming at me, he told me I was codependent, and I was like, "How dare you tell me that it's my fault?" Because that's basically what I felt. And when I started doing my own healing work, I was like, "Wait a minute, he was right. That's why I was with him to begin with." And so that self-discovery, getting out of there and actually taking the time to learn who I was, what I wanted, going on a journey of figuring myself out. I got to a point where I was totally happy being single for the first time in my life. And that's when I met an amazing man that is now my husband of almost 10 years and father of my two children. And I never could have imagined that this is where I would be while I was in the trenches, when I was with the abusive partner, when I was with those toxic people. It was so much work. I had to try so hard to make it not work realistically, but I was so busy researching and trying to figure it out and changing myself and walking on eggshells and doing all the things that so many of us do. And I had lost myself in the process. And so it's such a different experience when you're married to the right person versus married to the wrong person, where you're trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. As you're talking, I was in a relationship. I dated a guy, lived with him for a short period of time in northern Colorado, and he called me a narcissist. I had never heard of the word narcissist before. And so this is around 10 years ago, maybe 11. And so I did a deep dive to understand narcissism. And I realized that I couldn't be a narcissist because I did a deep dive trying to fix me. Narcissists don't fix themselves, right?
No.
And so understanding narcissism, it was such a deal for me. It's like, oh my God, people like this exist. And I'm currently writing a book about abuse. And of course, narcissism is inside the book. I was able to go back through other relationships and point out or pull out information why I was married to my first husband who was not, or I can't say is an abuser, but got abusive. And so there's a spectrum of narcissism, and he kind of sat at the very bottom of narcissism and would jump up and down. Anyways, just you're saying that he called you something and you went and did the deep dive. So now you understand, and so that's why you're here. And so you're working, your bio talks about your healing. You helped your clients go through the healing. So what did you do that helped you to get through the healing part to get here?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important is that I just remember I was the one who always took care of everybody else. I was successful. I was a professional. I had degrees. I had a great job. I made really good money. And when you think about what the stereotype of someone who's in an abusive relationship, I didn't fit that mold. And so part of me was able to compartmentalize and be like, no, that happens to those other people. I'm okay. And I find that a lot of my clients, we're on fire and drowning, and we'll keep telling people we're okay. And it's this commonality that a lot of us have. So being able to reach out for help is hard for us. We are great researchers. We are great at trying to figure out solutions to problems, which makes us really good in our jobs and our businesses, but makes it not so good in these types of situations where the solution is get out. The solution is not try to keep making it work, and it's not giving up. We are not good at feeling like we have lost. So, because we're successful and professional, we're like, I'm going to figure it out. The solution is there. We're going to just power through. But when it comes to these types of relationships, pushing just prolongs the pain and discomfort. We're not failures for leaving something that is toxic. And so when I did finally make that decision to leave, I just remember there was a period of time where I thought to myself, okay, I'm just never going to do this again. And some of you might have experienced that. So that this is when a lot of the times people will say, well, I'm going to start dating again, or I'm just not going to do that ever again. Like we're going to just will ourselves through it. But I have found from my own experience and now working with clients for the past 12 years is that it's not just the will. We have to understand how to create something different. We don't mean to keep repeating the same patterns. We just do. Because as much as it's uncomfortable, it's what we know. So we do the learned patterns from childhood. We do the learned patterns from the adults' past relationships, the baggage that we bring into where we are right now. We have to be able to really look at what are the things that are causing us to be attracted to these types of people? What are the things that are keeping us stuck with these types of unhealthy people? And then what am I looking to create that's different? So we have to make sure that we're focusing on learning who we are. And of course, I have a 6-step process, but I will tell you one of the most important things that I recommend to all my clients is to make sure that you are spending time alone before you start dating again. Huge problem. Everybody wants to get right back into dating, but spend some time alone, get to know who you are. And this is important. What makes you tick? What do you love to do? Without the world in your business, who are you without all of that? And then once you figure that out, you start creating that team of people. So you have your professionals, whether it's a therapist or a coach, your friendship group. Who are the people that are supporting Team You? You're creating that base along with your passions. And then when you are ready, when you have that base going, then you can start dating. But I always say to my clients, we date then for educational purposes only. We're not dating to meet our next future significant other. We are dating to figure out, hey, wait a minute, who is going to be the right fit for me with this person that I have become and am becoming? Not who do I have to be in order to get somebody to like me? And I think that's a big turnaround. It's a big twist on what a lot of dating is. I think there's a lot of pick me, and there's a lot of let me prove myself worthy of this person, where we need to flip that script and realize that we are basically interviewing for the position of our partner. And so who's going to be the best position, the best fit for that position, instead of trying to mold ourselves into somebody else. So I think, when you look at the healing process, it's about self-discovery. It's about who you are, but also not being afraid to say, you know what, I am top shelf and I want someone who's going to add to my life, not someone that I have to change or turn things around in order to make them happy and make their lives better. It's a synergistic relationship where both people are getting positive benefits from the relationship.
That's cool. The part, I tell my clients, actually more like I was telling my girlfriend, that you need to take the list from all of the guys that you've dated and put down, these are my things that I won't have in my life. And these are the one things that they had that I want more of in my life. Tony Robbins talked about that, and that's where I picked that up originally. And so I did that. And one of the things that was on my list that I wanted my mate to be able to support my work, support my my habits with my taekwondo, and to support that part of my life, to be somebody that would cheer me on and always be there for me,
Mhm.
and who would let me do that for them. And that was huge. I would have lots of guys that would support me, but I didn't ever have one that would really let me support them. And I really love that part of my life. And so, just like you said, I went out and I was alone and I dated and I had fun. I had a good time, figured me out, started loving me for the first time in my life. And voila, I met Mr. Perfect for me. And I met him on Match. It was love at first sight for him. And for me, I was still kind of going, I tend to think that way too quickly. And so I kind of waited for a while, but literally after our long date, he texted me when I was in bed. I was snuggled in and ready to go to sleep. And he's like, I wish I was still with you. And I jokingly said, well, you could be. And he said, what's your address? And he never left.
Hmm.
It's those types of things. When you're ready, they'll come. You become a magnet for the right person.
And I'll say too, I mean, it's funny, I met my husband also on Plenty of Fish. And I think, it was one of those things where like I knew what I was looking for. So I had my list. And I always tell clients also make the list, but also then go out and date to see like, is this really what you want on your list? Because sometimes we have this idea of what we want and then we start dating and we're like, oh, wait, I was just kidding. That's not exactly, I asked for the wrong thing. So, you do that. But I was at a point where I was so happy being single that I was dating just for fun. Like, let's just see what happens. So when I met him, I actually, and it was kind of same kind of thing. It was for him like love at first sight. I was like, oh, he's attractive. He's what I'm looking for physically. Let's see. But then after a few dates, I was like, he's really awesome, but I don't know if I want to stop being single. So I almost broke up with him. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, wait a minute. I feel like if I actually break up with him, I just felt this like hole in my chest. Like I'm not giving him the opportunity that I feel like I should. I feel like I'm missing out if I don't give him the opportunity. And so I finally, and the cool thing about dating from that perspective is that I was okay if it didn't work out. I was okay with letting it go if it didn't work out. And so I was also free completely to be myself. So in the beginning of even us dating, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to be single. I might date other men. And he was like, that's okay. I'm not going to force you to do or say anything that you don't want to do. And I was like, wait, a guy that's not trying to control me? He's not trying to put me in a box. And like it was such a different, freeing experience where I was like, I really do need to give this guy a chance. And so I did. And then, I mean, we actually got engaged also very quickly, got married within like 6 months. I mean, everything, once it was, I allowed him fully in, the process of our courtship just went really quickly. And we very quickly got married, started having kids, doing all that kind of stuff. And then he started working with me, helping people heal from toxic relationships, which I never could have imagined in a million years, ever having a spouse that would help me in my passion for helping others. So, again, if you're stuck in that place where you're the one doing all the work and you're trying to figure everything out, you could be with a partner, you could be single, you could also be with a partner that love and respects, and it, just like what you said, it loves what you're doing, whether it's working with you or just supporting what you're doing, but really that cheerleader that wants you to be the best version of you.
Yes, and that was with my late husband. This show came from him. He wanted to let men know that men can be in abusive relationships too, and that there is a way out, and that you can find magical love on the other end of things. So he was the one who, I mean, I had suggested the show, and he had suggested that he be the co-host so that he could be my male partner and be the masculine part and be able to let men know that abuse does happen to men as well. So he was partnered up with me. He didn't coach, although I did have him talk with a couple of clients because men sometimes need to be reassured that they're not weird by asking for help and not weird by saying that they've been in an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, for me, it was like having heaven right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And statistically, I mean, we know it literally can happen to anyone. It's very popular for women to accuse men of narcissism and for men to accuse women of being borderline personality disorder. That's like the here or bipolar. You hear those all the time. And
Right?
but realistically, we all have some qualities of those qualities. Like there's moments, and especially if you're backed into a corner where you might not behave the best version of yourself. And so that's another thing too that I think is really, really important is that sometimes it doesn't have to be that someone's the bad guy. Sometimes we just don't work well together. Sometimes we're just not the right fit. And where you might not, you and a different partner might not bring out those same qualities in each other. And so, it's like Kevin Bacon in Flashdance or whatever it's called, where they're not allowed to dance. They're at a a town where nobody's allowed to dance. You got to find another dancer. If you love to dance, you got to find another person who likes to dance. Like find the people that love doing the things that you love to do and not trying to force again things that don't work for you.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm at a point on the other end of the death of my husband where I I'm I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. I don't need to go anywhere else. I'm happy at this moment here. And so that I've got a whole tribe of friends, and when you talked about having the tribe or the family that supports you, that was the one thing. I haven't had almost any family support, not from my original divorce and not from the death of my husband. It's like everybody got afraid that I might have the plague or something when my husband died. My family, the only real support I had was my two sons. And they both went out to Arkansas where we were. And that support system is so important for our
Yes.
healing and finding that. So I know that after my divorce, and part of my problem in my divorce was I didn't tell my family what was going on. I didn't tell them about the abuse. Nobody knew I had broken my hand. Nobody knew I had separated ribs and didn't tell anybody about the dislocated leg later on. And these were years apart. I stayed in that relationship and it's at a point, this is something that a lot of people don't understand. They'll say, well, how can you stay in a relationship where you're getting abused? We don't know we're being abused in most of those cases.
We
I mean,
compartmentalize, and that's the same thing. Most people don't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I was embarrassed. I had a lot of shame. I don't want anyone to know. And then we compartmentalize. Like, I was talking about this with someone the other day. Being strangled on your wedding night is pretty terrible. I didn't tell anybody that. And I didn't tell, and even getting an order of protection, I almost forgot to mention that as I was trying to get the order. And luckily, I had an advocate with me that was like, anything else happened? And I told her that almost at like passing. And she was like, oh my, what? Like that happened? Do you know how quickly it could have killed you? And it took someone to give me that reality check to even, and again, we are professional, educated women. So this has nothing to do with that at all. We just don't, our brains are not functioning when we are in that kind of state.
yeah, they aren't. The dislo or the broken hand, and I think the separated ribs came from the same fight. And then there's other portions that might have been from that same fight and might have been from another fight. I can't even like separate them and figure that all out. And then where were my children? I have no clue when this fight was going on where my children were. And that fight, they were still fairly young. And so I even now in writing this book about all this stuff, I can't find that in my head. It's there to protect me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, when I wrote my book, it was I had to go through some of the orders of protection, police reports, things like that. And there were things that I completely forgot happened. I was like, oh, okay, I forgot when he followed me, had called the police to have me followed to my friend's house accusing me of drunk driving. Like, I forgot when he showed up to the house and knocked all of the furniture all over the place when my friends were like completely, those things just completely came out of my mind. And you're right, it's our brains trying to protect us. But there's this weird thing that I find is that with when you're talking about leaving an abusive person, there is this trauma bond that goes on. And so when you it's like we're trying to prove to them that we are worthy of being chosen. And it literally feels like withdrawal from drugs when we are removed from them, even though it is a terrible, unsafe place for us. But that's what our brain does. So it's scared of and if you've been told over and over again that we're not good enough or too opinionated or too whatever the things that they've said to try to break down our spirit, that kind of is in the back of our mind also. So now we're thinking about leaving, but we also are thinking to ourselves, but maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I am going to be alone forever. Maybe I do deserve this. Maybe this is the best that I can get. And those are all the things going through our head as we're also saying, but I want them to love me and I see what's good and I want it to be the way it was in the beginning. So you have all of these conflicting thoughts in your head, which is one of the reasons why we stay stuck. So in healing and removing ourselves, we have to go through the withdrawals of it in order to be able to fully leave. But that's why it's so hard for us to make that decision.
Yeah. And I'm the one who left. And 6 months after I left, and because I had nobody else on the outside, it looked like I left him for another man, which was kind of sort of the truth. But the reality is I needed a safe freaking place to stay. And my family had chosen his side, and I needed somebody with no alcohol. So he was in AA. He was one of the martial artists that was in my class. He wasn't one of my students, but he was safe. And I knew that he wasn't going to bug me. He was the type of person that would just let me sit in my office and be there and do whatever I needed to do. But 6 months later, I went to my husband's now house, used to be ours, and I attempted suicide. I was only lucky that I drank the whole bottle of wine with the sleeping pills. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thrown up and I wouldn't have gotten rid of all of the sleeping pills in my system. And it's because like you were saying, that separation, we struggle so hard to make that separation. And I didn't like the yelling. You could hit me all day. I was a martial artist. I can take the hits. The hits didn't bother me. And not that he ever struck me, like punched me or slapped me, but he grabbed me. And that's how come the hand got broke, is because I knew how to release, and I released, and there was a door jam in the way. And so he had me gaslit to make me believe that it was my fault that my hand broke. And it was my fault he separated the ribs, because he threw me then on the bed and stuck his knee in my chest. And he said, but you were so crazy. I just didn't want you to go drive off and hurt yourself. That is totally not what really happened. But it took me years to see the truth in that gaslighting aspect. And then I went through several other things that he gaslit me on. And it took me, like I said, it took me 15 years, really, until I started doing this work. So like 20 plus years to really get the whole aspect to what really took place.
And it's good. I mean, I'm so glad that you were able to do the work and be able to work through that so that you didn't bring that into other relationships, because there's a whole other life outside of that we don't, when we're in it, it's like it's hard to see the light when you're in the darkness. It really is. And I can't say this enough. We don't know what else is out there. And so I remember leaving, and he would say to me, every relationship has issues. You think everything is lollipops and rainbows, but everybody has something. And I just remember thinking, well, but what if there's a chance? What if there's the tiniest little chance that maybe my life could be different? Because I remember thinking to myself, can I do this for another 50 years? And then I remember thinking, well, maybe I'll die, maybe he'll die. And those felt like relief. I didn't want to die, but the thought of being not around that, however that was, felt like relief. And then I thought, wait, if there's that tiny bit of chance that maybe I can create something different for myself, I want to go for that. And that little glimmer is what I held on to get out of there. And at first I thought that, well, maybe he was right and it is that bad, because I had all those horrible feelings after I left. And then as time went on, I always give the example, it kind of feels like you get a new pair of glasses. And as you start doing the healing work, you're like, holy crap, this is what the world looks like. It's beautiful. Like look at the definition and the colors, and people are different than what I imagined, because when you're like a caged animal. And so you get out and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is the world as it really is, not as the way he has said it is. And for me it was him, but it's a whole different world out there than what I was living when I was in that toxicity.
Yeah, as you're talking, I get all of these little scenes in my head. There's situations where I can remember being in those and just fighting and fighting and fighting. And now there's people that are in those situations. And because I'm on the outside, being who I am now with all this training and understanding and everything, I look, you can prevent that fight by not engaging in the conversation.
Hmm.
Just by not engaging in the conversation. They may or may not be mad at you when they bark at you, but if you don't engage in the conversation, you can walk away, do your dishes, go fold the clothes, just don't engage. And when they come and knock at the door and want to open the can of worms again, you still don't engage. You can apologize for how they feel. You can say, I'm sorry for what's going on,
Hmm.
and just go back to whatever. And I recently experienced this with a friend, this exact thing. She told me the exact story of what I was just saying. And within, I don't know, about 15 minutes, she said, after she didn't engage the second time, he came back in and gave her a kiss on her forehead.
Hmm.
He couldn't say, I'm sorry, but that was his, I'm sorry. And
Hmm.
it was just because he was having a bad time at work and he needed somebody to blame. And so he was going to start a fight. So it could be his fault.
Hmm.
And just not engaging in the conversation. And we don't need to engage in the conversation. Gray rock, drop it and walk away.
And we don't need to act on every feeling that we have.
Mm-mm.
I think that's one of the things that we start learning is that, to kind of pay attention to with the metacognition, right? Pay attention, think about what you're thinking about. And so if you're in a super negative place, be aware of that. Like, hey, I'm in a negative place right now. I'm feeling like I want to lash out. Okay, well, at least thanks for letting me know. Or like you're feeling negative about yourself. Okay, why am I feeling negative about myself? Well, I didn't eat enough. I didn't sleep enough. I didn't have, whatever those things are. But we very much are in this action mode, and sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to act on this negative feeling just because I'm feeling it. Sometimes it just takes a distraction to be able to move on.
Yes. And there's so many, I can just see all of these little things that have gone on in my life. And had I just not engaged, or had I had understanding for their situation, or had I just listened to them without my 2 cents, those all could have prevented an argument, a fight that eventually would have happened through that conversation. And that was the way it was with my late husband and I. And I've got friends now that if I would engage in different conversations, we could go sideways. So it's like you just learn what's important, and what's not important. And yes, when you're in a relationship, there are things, discussions. You may not be happy with something they said when you were at the party or something to that effect. And I'm a big component of don't talk about it in front of other people. We don't need other people to be affected by our negative energy. But do we have to get negative about it? Can we
Mhm.
just say something in kindness about that or ask why without engaging in the negative side of that?
I think that speaks a lot to everyone needs to take responsibility for their own behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy for us to blame. I just had this conversation recently with someone where it's like, well, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this. And I'm like, well, it must be really exhausting to be so focused on everybody else all the time.
Right.
Right? Like, oh my gosh, everybody's against me. Well, okay, whew. What's actually really going on here? Like, can we take responsibility for our reaction to their reaction? Do we have to engage in everything that they say and do? What can we do differently? And again, this is not about trying to, step on eggshells and be worried about what they're going to do. But, again, we're not always perfect. And so, what are the things that we are doing? Like, we're going to say things that we don't really mean. We're going to, but take responsibility for it. Yep, I was in a shitty mood yesterday and I said some things. I didn't mean to. I apologize, and being aware of it. And again, working on those things that we need to work on because if you're going to take some time focusing on what somebody else needs to change, that's an avoidance technique that's never going to get you anywhere.
Right.
Literally. I mean, the only way to get anywhere is to be like, oh, okay, like for me, like being called codependent in the early, my last relationship and thinking like, wait, so this is me? Now, instead of people saying, well, you're victim blaming or whatever, I think there's something super empowering with being able to say, hey, I was the common denominator in all of my toxic relationships. Yes, I didn't deserve to be treated badly. I didn't deserve to be abused. I didn't deserve any of those things, but I was doing something that was getting me to this place. What can I do differently to not get here again? That's a good question to ask yourself. Is it remove yourself from that relationship? Is it how are you reacting to people? Is it your communication skills? Is it you saying yes when you should say no? What are the things that are going on there? And as soon as you start taking that kind of responsibility, then you can create that life that you want. Then you're not going to be into those situations where it's unhealthy and unsafe for you as well.
Yes. I know taking responsibility for my actions has been how my life's got to where it's at. I can go back and say, yep, that was my responsibility. And the thing that I tell, a lot of clients, I'm like, stop for a minute. Look at your whole life. You see your whole life? You created it. All the bad, all the good, you created it by your viewpoint, what you're focusing on, and the people you're choosing to hang out with and talk to and how you talk to them. You created your whole life. So if it sucks, it's your responsibility to change you so you can change your life. And that we have to take responsibility for that. I know if I hadn't taken responsibility, I would have never met my Mr. Perfect for me.
Exactly. Same thing. It's again, letting go. It's hard to let go. It's hard. And then, you mentioned Tony Robbins before, but I think there's also the being thankful for the lessons. Instead of saying like, oh, look at all these mistakes and this time that I wasted, instead of repeating those same mistakes over and over again, look at them as lessons. What's the lesson that I can get from this? Okay, I choose an abusive partner. Okay, what can I learn from this? Okay, don't try to get into a relationship where I'm trying to fix someone. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't try to be the savior. Work on myself. What are and you can learn a lot from the lessons that you are given throughout your life.
Yes, definitely. I think if we don't learn lessons from our life, then we're not growing. We're we're somehow stagnating somewhere in a
Well, and
corner.
I always say, and the universe just taps harder. So if we don't learn that lesson, the universe is like, hello, now you're going to learn it this way. And it's going to suck even more than the last time I tried to show you that lesson.
Right, right. Yes, so true, so true. And it does, that I always call it a 2x4. That's the next tap. If you don't watch it, you're going to end up in a car accident or whatever the situation. And sure enough, that's the next step. And it's we have got to slow down, stop, take a look, take an inventory of what's going on with our life because it's our life and we're in charge. The one thing that I have heard several times here in the last several months is that you have 365 days. They're going to unfold. No matter what, they're going to unfold. You can choose how they unfold and help them unfold in the direction you want them, or you can just let them make a mess of your life.
Yep. And it's going to happen anyway. There's
Right?
like a friend of mine, she went back for her PhD and we were in our like mid 30s. And I remember one of her friends said to her, yeah, but you're going to be almost 40 when you get your PhD. And she was like, well, I'm going to get to 40 anyway. Might as well have a PhD associated with it. And I was like, that is exactly how you should live your life.
Right,
Like,
right, right. It, I don't know. I remember back in the day when I was married to my first husband and we were in our 30s, and I said something about he had talked about that he wanted to go and become a DOW officer, Divisional Wildlife Officer. And I says, why did you do that? And he says, well, I'm too old. I'm like, in your 30s, you're too old to go back to school to be a DOW officer. And again, just like you said, we're going to get there anyways. Might
Yeah.
as well get there doing something we want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's so silly what we do, and because even my first marriage, I felt the clock. I was 28. I want to get married. I want to settle down. I want to be able to have children. I want to be able to do all those things. So I haven't found anything great. Might as well settle for this. I mean, and realistically, that was what I was thinking. I wouldn't have said that at the time, but that was what I was thinking. So I ignored those red flags because of it. And then instead, I wasted years of my life with the wrong person and then was able to leave and then do what I needed to do and take care of myself and find the right person, and then ended up being able to have my kids and do all that. But yeah, it's amazing what we tell ourselves at different ages, where I'm too old, or all these things that I don't care if you're in your 50s or 60s or 70s, there's the right person out there for you still. There's always an opportunity. You're alive, you're here, there's always an opportunity to turn your life around. No matter what you've experienced, no matter how long you've experienced, it's time right now, listening to this, for anyone who needs that reminder, it's time to make yourself a priority.
Amen. Amen. So, since you opened that door, tell me, Stephanie, how you work with your clients.
So we work remotely. We have a holistic coaching program where we do one-on-one. It's kind of we have different combinations. We can do one-on-one coaching. We also have a hybrid group coaching approach where there is curriculum, there's one-on-one coaching. My husband actually uses something called Psych-K, which is high-speed mindset for the subconscious. So it's in the same family as NLP and EMDR, but we tend to find that it works at a much quicker rate with our clients, and we call it our secret sauce, so that instead of going back to I'm not good enough or it's not possible for me, we're able to change your beliefs at a subconscious level and help you to really change your perspective and heal at a much quicker pace.
Yes, and I actually have studied Psych-K back when in one of my earlier certifications, and so I understand Psych-K, and I believe those types of trainings, those type of therapies, are just way better than just traditional talk therapies because they involve more of the brain and it just gets you involved in your healing process as you move forward.
Agreed. Yeah, we find we've had clients that have come to us and said one session with myself or one session with my husband was better than 25 years of therapy. And that
Right.
makes me sad because I think about, well, you spent 25 years going to a therapist once a week and you never got what you needed. Like that sucks. Because that sucks. They obviously were trying, but and again, you're here now. This is what it is. But if you've been trying the same thing over and over again and you're not finding results, then try something different. For me, coaching and therapy was the best combination for me. For my clients, I find the same thing. They started out with therapy and then they go to coaching. That's how they get their results. And so if you're in that place, then and I don't care who whether it's Tina, whether it's me, find a coach that you feel comfortable with, that you resonate with. Hire them and have them help you. You want to find someone who's where you want to be, and then they can help pull you there at a quicker rate because they can see and they know where you keep repeating those patterns. They can call you out and help you move more quickly.
Yes. And that said, not every coach can coach every person. And that is important for you to find the right coach for you, the right fit for you, because you're going to move much faster with the right fit, the right person. So,
Exactly.
Stephanie, we're reaching that time where we're coming to an end. So we know how you work with your clients. So now tell us how people can find you.
Well, you can find us in a bunch of different ways. If you look up Stephanie McPhail, if you do a Google search for Stephanie McPhail, Toxic Love Transformation is my podcast. My business is Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. You can find me in all of those places. I also am the co-founder of Divorce Support Network. So you can go over to Divorce Support Network and find out about the work that we do for bridging the gap between divorce professionals and people at all different stages of divorce. So go ahead and find us. We're on all the social medias like TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, you name it. If there's a social media, we're probably on it. So go follow us. We give a lot of value. We even have a private Facebook group, Divorce Support Network. Go check it out, follow us, and really dive into what we have. And if it feels like the right fit for you, reach out and then let's talk about getting you some support and getting you to the place you want to be.
Amen to that. So I'm a certified divorce coach, meaning that I've trained in the complexities of divorce. I've also dealt with abuse, not just my abuse, but the abuse of my father, who was almost murdered in his second relationship, and my late husband, who he felt was tortured in his relationship. So I've come from the abuse and I've learned about the divorce aspect. And that makes me understand the situation. You can find me or reach me on my email at coachtinalyn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinaLYNN@gmail. And my website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can find me on social media, Facebook under Tina Huggins, Huggins, on LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, on Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and TikTok under Divorce Tina. And so I would just like for you to give our viewers a last bit of advice for us, Stephanie.
Stop trying to fix the world and start fixing yourself. If you can focus on that, then you can end up doing those great things you were put here to do. But until you stop focusing on everybody else and really take that step back to focus on you, you're going to keep ending up in a place where you don't want to be.
Yes, and I've given this advice in the last few shows, but reach out and ask for help.
Yes.
You can't do it alone. It's like digging a ditch. I mean, you can dig forever if you want to, or you can ask for help and you can get the ditch done. And when it is time for you to start healing and start moving forward and working on yourself, it's best to have help, because what we think is wrong is not always the case. And being able to fix what truly is wrong or is not wrong and strengthen those parts and pieces of us, that's where we come in. And that's where Stephanie can definitely help. And the fact that she gets to work with David, you get a team that's there to support you, whether you're a man or a woman as you move through. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us. So I will say this to our viewers, because I talked about it earlier, suicide is something that we can come to, the suicidal ideations, because of all the stress that we're underneath. So please understand, if you are there, there is a way out. Call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, simple number 988. And if you're in the Netherlands, it's 113. Get that support so that you can talk to somebody right here, right now, so that you can get into a better place. If you are in a situation that you need the police officers there right now, it is 911. It is 999 in the UK, and in the Netherlands, it's 112. Just make sure that you press charges when you get to that point. Press charges, because that's your key out of the abuse. Once you press charges, do not drop those charges. If you have been abused, what happens on the other side of drop charges is usually way worse than what's happened to date. So don't drop the charges. This is your key out of the relationship. The domestic violence hotline, if you or somebody you know are involved in domestic violence, you can call 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. And if you can please like, comment, and share so that this can help others. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being with me here, Stephanie.
Thank you.